Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Courageous Leadership with Virginia Prodan. We are so glad you are here. I'm Virginia Prodan, your host. I am an international human rights attorney, a speaker, an author, your host, and my book, Saving My Assassin, has a very important message and a very important message that our very important guest, Frank Wolf, will have for you and for the whole world. And I want you to make sure that you are making clear around you. The people can, you close the door, take notes, because the message that Congressman Frank Wolf for you, it's very, very important. So, Congressman Frank Wolf, thank you so very much for coming to our podcast. We are so delighted to have you here. I remember meeting you many, many years ago under communist in Romania. As you was a congressman with Congressman Christopher Smith will come to Romania and try to protect me and everyone, not only in Romania, all over the world, that were persecuted or trying to expose the government. So here we are in America, seeing America in many ways changing. And I'm so delighted that you want to be on my podcast and you want to share your heart and your amazing mission to protect religious freedom, not only in America, but all over the world. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be with you, Virginia. Glad to be with you.
If you can speak a little bit louder.
I said, I'm glad to be with you.
Thank you so very much. We want to talk about your desire. For many, many, many years, you went to Romania. You exposed and provided, by exposing the dictator Nicolae Ceausescu, provided a platform for me to be able to continue and expose the government. I'm sure you have done the same thing in China and many other countries.
Yes,
And you
we have
also,
been done.
yeah, and you also have done amazing things with what it's called Frank Wolf Amendments here in America. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. It's the international religious freedom legislation. And what it does is two things. It monitors what is taking place all over the world, not here in the United States, but all over the world. And it set up a commission. It's called the United States International USERF, U.S. International Religious Freedom Commission. The members of it are appointed by the president and also by the majority leader in the House and the Senate and Republican and Democrat. It's bipartisan. And it comes out with very tough and very aggressive recommendations about what should be done with what's taking place in a particular country. Let's say Nigeria, where there have been more Christians killed than any other country in the world. Secondly, it has established a precedent whereby there is an office in the Secretary Rubio's office in the State Department that has a large staff that does nothing but work on human rights and religious freedom internationally again. And they make a report and they recommend to the Secretary of State what should be done. So that it's a very aggressive. Most of the groups who are being persecuted when they come here to the United States, they meet with the U.S. Commission, which has a great staff, one of the best staffs. I was on the commission 2 years ago for 2 years. One of the best staffs here in Washington that knows everything that's going on. And then they also meet with the State Department staff. And those recommendations are sent up to the secretary about what should be done. A lot depends on who the secretary is. In the last 4 years, under the Biden administration, there were many recommendations and they were never accepted. In other administrations, they're all accepted. And we're hopeful that they will be now. For instance, the persecution of Christians and moderate Muslims is incredible, beyond imagination. And the recommendation is to place Nigeria on the designation. There are three designations, but one, a country particularly concerned, meaning there will be pressure put on that government to stop the killing of Christians. You remember the girls, the Boko Haram kidnapped the girls, the Boko Haram girls. There will be pressure to do things. So that's the way it works. Outside commission, established, top flight staff, all the members who have 2-year terms are appointed by the president and by the leadership of the House and Senate. And then separately, within the State Department, there's a very capable staff, big staff, that looks at all these different countries and comes out and makes a report and makes the recommendations to Secretary of State what should be done.
That is wonderful. And what do you think on how we can help the Commission and the Secretary of State to be aware of all this situation?
Well, anybody that has any information can send it in, particularly to USCIRF. If you go on U.S. Commission for International Religious Freedom, they have a web page. You can contact them directly. If you look at it to see what they do, the quality of their work, look at the USCIRF Commission report of 2025 or 2024 or 2023. It's in-depth, several pages for each country, like China, like Burma, like Armenia, like different countries, like Nigeria. What can be done? The bad news is there's very little interest in human rights and religious freedom today as it used to be. The high watermark was during the Reagan administration. When I went to Romania, and we would go back, if you may not recall, I was there during the revolution. When the revolution broke out, I flew there and I got Pacepa's daughter and took Pacepa's daughter, who you know who Pacepa is, and got her out. Those days are over. Ronald Reagan then took away the most favored nation trading status. The Congress used to give it to Ceausescu over and over, and he would brag that his wife was the greatest scientist ever, and he was a wonderful guy and everything else. And delegations would go, and he would wine them and dine them and then laugh how they were being tricked. Ronald Reagan changed all that. If you recall, when I got back from one of the trips, I asked Ronald Reagan to withdraw the most favored nation trading status. And he did, and it basically brought down Ceausescu. Reagan has never gotten the credit that he should have gotten. There were more groups outside Virginia than there are now. In those days, you had Father Newhouse, Richard Newhouse. You had Chuck Colson. You had Carl Henry. You had all these leaders. Now there's very little interest in human rights and religious freedom around the world. For instance, to give an example, the cradle of Christianity is Syria. It's, if you recall in the Bible, where Paul met Jesus on the road to Damascus. I was in Damascus a couple years ago, and I went into the house where Paul and Ananias met, and it's run by the Catholic Church. Today in Syria, they're gunning people down. They're gunning Christians down. They're gunning Druze down. They're gunning Alawites down. They're gunning Kurds down. The videos that I'm getting sent are so bad that you couldn't even almost share them. There's very little interest among the church as it used to be. One of the ways that communism, including the communism in Romania and Russia, was brought down was there were three people. There was Ronald Reagan, there was Pope John Paul, and there was Margaret Thatcher. And together, they literally brought down the Soviet Union and brought down the Eastern Bloc and helped bring down Ceausescu. there's a book out by a guy, a professor of Grove City College, that points out how Ronald Reagan used to fly over and meet with the Pope, and the Pope would come over here and meet with him. The head of the CIA would go over and meet with the Pope and transfer different information. They brought down communism, which in essence brought down Ceausescu. Those days are over. Secondly, very few members of Congress travel now outside the country. And if they do, they'll go to the Paris Air Show or they'll go to London, but very few go into these places. So the world, unfortunately, Virginia, has changed. There's very little interest. They're all good people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not criticizing, but there's very little interest by religious leaders today as there was back during the Reagan time. Pope John Paul, Father Richard Newhouse, who had everyone's ear here, Cardinal O'Connor, Chuck Colson. You remember Chuck Colson?
Yeah.
Those days they're over.
Well, I want to believe that they are not over, because as long as the good Lord keeps me alive, I will make sure that I will let everybody know how important was your contribution, Christopher Smith's contribution, coming to Romania, talking with me, going back and talking with Ronald Reagan, who knew you travel, and Christopher Smith travel, and you inform President Ronald Reagan, who knew socialist and communist leaders very well. Also, I want to say it, American embassy was full of diplomats who knew Romanian language. I didn't know any English. That was important for me to communicate with them in Romanian, so they were able to translate. Today, I don't believe that the embassies in different countries, the diplomats are learning those language.
There's also a problem. Some of the embassies are not as engaged. For instance, I have gone to Egypt a number of times. Christians are being persecuted in Egypt. My last trip to Egypt, some of the Christians told me they are afraid to go to the American embassy because they don't have an open door there. Many of the employees in the embassy are actually Egyptians, not Christians, but Egyptians, and so they really don't feel welcome. They don't feel embraced, and they don't feel that they make a difference. So there's a lot. That all comes down from the top, though. That all comes down. Everyone ought to speak. You shouldn't serve in a country if you can't speak the language. It's what you hear in the stores, what you hear on the radio, what you hear on the television, what you hear when you're walking through the marketplace, what somebody wants to come and say and tell you something. And so we're going through a very difficult time for the country. And I think you can't deny it, because persecution in Syria, brutal. Persecution in Sudan. In Sudan, there's genocide being taken place. Persecution in Nigeria, brutal. Persecution in China. The Catholic Church is being persecuted. The Protestant Church is being persecuted. The Uyghur Muslims are being persecuted. They're actually taking organs out of Uyghur Muslims and selling them. The Falun Gong, they're taking organs. Last year, 100,000 had their organs, Chinese had taken out, meaning they die. Hearts, lungs, kidneys, and they die. And also in Tibet, they're changing the name of Tibet. The Tibetan people are just, Lhasa, which is the capital of Tibet, is no longer than a dirty Chinese city. It's changed, and yet nobody is saying anything. In fact, there are many Washington law firms in this city that represent China. That would have never happened during the Reagan administration. Do you think Ronald Reagan would have ever let somebody, a Washington law firm, to represent the Soviet Union? No. And so the world has changed. And I think something And I think it won't take place in my lifetime, unfortunately.
Sir,
Something has
I
to be
I
done.
agree. I agree with you that the world change. I agree with you that the congressmen and senators the travel very little compared with. That is a dangerous world, but it was a dangerous world where you traveled to Romania. You took a risk of your life. You took risk to come to Romania. If I remember correctly, in one of your books, you explain how you discovered, you and Christopher Smith discovered that you were followed by the secret police Securitate in Romania. How you decided, even though Christopher Smith and you had separate rooms in the hotel and you were diplomats in coming to communist Romania, you decided to sleep in the same room and put a table and chairs to the door in case the secret police will come and try to kill you. You took risks, sir. You took risks. And I want you to give the credit because of you and because of Christopher Smith. I am alive. You took risks, and others should take note of what you have done for Christians. And I'm sure Christian in China, in other places can say it. I can say it, what you have done in Romania and what you have done for me. And I will never stop telling people how courageous you are and Christopher Smith.
Well, thank you. I think much of what we did was because of our faith. Mr. Smith, who still serves in Congress, is a very strong believer, and I am also. And that night that you're referencing is we left the American embassy and we told them we were going to go down. They told us where Pachepa's daughter was living, and Pachepa had asked me to bring her home, and we went down and they told us not to go, and we went up to the door and guns and guards, and then we ran down the street and there were sirens and and then I thought we were going to be arrested, so we barricaded our office room. Yes, but the good story is the Romanian people, Christians, were very strong faith. People like, I won't mention names to get them in trouble, but there were a lot of pastors that were so strong. And so, but I wish the world could be like that today. Something's gone on that it's not that way. It may very well be that way, but boy, to see the suffering that's taking place in so many countries now, it's
Sir,
it's
I agree with you what you said that Romanian people had strong faith. But you know why? Because when you see people from other country like you, people, congressmen coming and risking their life and acting just like the way the Bible tells us that we are a family of God, your faith grows. That's a reason why many congressmen and senators, especially the Christians one, should should walk by faith and go on those countries. Because as God protected you, as God protected me, God can protect them and many people in those dangerous places. And God created us to be a light for Christ, and you are a light for Christ for many people in communist Romania, that their faith grew. I will never forget when you came to our church, how people embrace you. When many people didn't know to speak in English, but they felt the love that you expressed by your presence there. That is what is necessary now from our representatives.
well, I agree with you, and I pray for a spiritual revival every night. So long, but the Lord hasn't really answered. And I see there are a lot of good people in Congress on both sides of the aisle, but I just don't see the the drive, and I just don't see the way. That also, and this is not meant to be critical, but there are many prominent Christian leaders in America who don't seem interested in these issues the way that they used to be. For instance, as I mentioned, Chuck Colson was always interested in these issues. If you look at the life of Father Newhouse, he was always interested in these issues. Carl Henry,
Yes,
who was the
but
editor of
what
Christian.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but what I noticed here after living 30 years, more than 30 years in America, when I came to America, Christians were in love with God and they loved to hear our stories and they were encouraged. More and more, you see Christians being more fearful of the government than of God. They were
Well,
more
yeah,
fearful
it's
that they
yeah.
are losing their job, that they have to accommodate the culture. I don't see in the Bible that God says that when the government turns against us and don't allow us to honor the Lord, to worship Him. The Bible tells us to stand up and remain faithful to God and pay the price, whatever that might be.
Well, I agree. There are a lot of good people here. They just don't know one of the things, and to kind of bring this to an end. But in order to really understand what's taking place in the country, you have to go there. You have to see there. You have to eat with the people, pray with the people, weep with the people. And so you can read an article about what's taking place in a certain country and how bad it is, but until you go and see it and feel it and touch it and experience it. I can still remember one time I was in Aradia and we went to the Second Baptist Church. We came into the church and Securitate had delayed us for about 4 hours. And when we got into the church, they were singing, and many of the men in the church, you could their fingers they were farmers, I guess. And often they stayed and they. I'm sure you've been in that church, the old church there, but they sang and they sang, and
Yeah,
it was
I
just
defended that church. I defended the pastor.
it
Yes.
was just a different thing. And so I don't think you can really get worked up about a problem unless you go and see it.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you with that. And I went to Cuba while I was here in America, and I took one of my child to my son to Cuba. He is now a rescue pilot in United States Air Force, and he experienced that. And you are so right, because while we were there in Cuba, he will come to me and say, "Oh, Mom, now I understand when you said by so and so." But I want to say that God put on my heart to train Americans, and that's what I am doing. If you go to, if everyone goes to virginiaprodanbooks.com/contact, they can put there their question, and I will answer them. We have programs that we train Christians how to stand up for persecution and be conquerors, be victorious in Christ. That's what many times I said. I am not here in America for hamburger and Coca-Cola. I'm here to scream loud and to say, Americans, you are going the wrong way, being fearful of the government and disrespecting God. Turn around, turn around. And I know I experienced that, and I am like anyone else. It's God who performed the miracles in my life. I allowed Him because I wanted to depend. I didn't find any other way that to depend on God. And God put people like you and many, many places, many others. I am encouraging people to read the story, my book, Saving My Assassin. You can find it at virginiaprodanbooks.com/product/book. It's
I have read
also.
your book. I have read your book.
Yes, yes, and your story, it's in my book and several other, but it's a proof that God can use you for His glory. God opens door. While I was in Romania, and you came in Romania, and you went to America and talked with President Reagan, Many of the unknown to me at that time, many of my cases became part of United Nations report on human rights violation and part of United States report on United States of violation in communist Romania. And that is because God put my obedience and your obedience together to expose the government and also to protect my life. But to protect my life, to be like a trumpet now and say, American people, wake up and stand up for Christ and bring Christ and freedom back to America.
Well, it may be coming. I mean, there's some positive signs out there. We have seen a lot of young people who have watched Charlie Kirk and watched some of those things. There is some life taking place, but in the meantime, the people of Syria are suffering. The people of Sudan are suffering. The people of Nigeria are suffering. The people of Cuba are suffering.
Yeah,
The
Albania,
people of
many
China
other.
are suffering. Last year there were 100,000. There's a big number people who were in China they took their organs out and they died, and many Westerners are helping the organ transplant people in Russia, in China, excuse me, to do it. So it's there is some sparks coming, but I don't think in my lifetime I'm going to see
Well,
a
I would love to contradict you on that and say, by the grace of God, if we mobilize and if we and your message today can ignite the fire in many hearts of many Christians, and maybe I hope representative congressmen and senators.
well. I
I
pray
just
for
want
that.
to,
I pray for that every
yeah.
night. So
I
we'll
just
see.
want to thank you so very much, Congressman Frank Wolf, for your participation and for your wonderful uh, reminders and what freedom is all about and what a congressman can do in one life like my life, in life of Romania and many other places. And I hope that it's an encouragement for many others. We pray, we hope that we'll have you some other times with
Okay.
more other information. Until next time, I hope that everybody will listen, share this podcast with others, and just be in fire for Christ, because
And and
everything can be possible in God's power.
and pray and pray.
And pray, yes, exactly, pray. Don't forget that those people that are suffering are our brothers and sisters in Christ. Send us your information, send us your question. We will be more than happy to help you. Until next time, go to virginiaprodanbooks.com/contact, put your questions there, your concerns, and we will be happy to answer your questions. And if you want to buy the book, again, you can find the book there. Thank you so very much again, Congressman Frank Wolf, and thank you
Bye now.
everyone. Until next time, God bless you. Bye-bye.